What's going on, guys, and welcome to another player versus player. Cafu versus Alves in the battle for the right backs. Two greats, two legends, and I think they both have a fantastic legacy. So I think this one's going to be very close. I'm intrigued by it because I have no idea how it's going to go. I saw a lot of Cafu growing up. Saw more of Alves growing up just because of my age. I respect both of them highly. Alves is one of my all-time favourite players in any position. And Cafu, I just have a tremendous amount of respect for and what he achieved. So I'm intrigued by it today. I think it's going to be a close one, as I said. Let me know yours in the comments. Let's get into it. Anticipation up first. I think Cafu was so clever at this. Rarely got sort of caught unaware or he knew what to do before he had the ball, even with the ball or without the ball, defending or attacking. He was very clever, very few times got caught out. I think Alves was similar, but I do think Alves, because he attacked so much, he did get exposed at times, probably a bit more than Cafu did on the defensive side. Attacking wise, I think Alves edges it in terms of anticipating for like when to attack. But I think Cafu's underrated in this sense, so anticipation I would give to Cafu. Passing then, a tough one again. Cafu, very underrated passer. Alves had that little bit of flair with his. I think he had a little bit more range than Cafu did. That's a tough one. Long range shooting. Cafu didn't score a ton of goals, but he did have a pretty thunderous shot from distance at times. But it just was few and far between with him. He didn't get forward as much as Alves would, whereas Alves scored quite a few thunderbolts, long-range shots, and he would get forward more. So for that, I would give to Alves. Goals, this one is night and day. But I think you have to consider as well the fact of the different eras they played. Because I think if Cafu played in modern football, he would have been more like an Alves, just in terms of, just because the system changes and the wing-back play, more emphasis on attacking wing-backs now. So I think Cafu's a little bit of a victim to his time period of tactics and what managers wanted players to do. I think given the opportunity, Cafu would have got forward more. But because of that, and just unfortunate time for this category itself for goals, Cafu finished with 16 in his career, and Alves finished with 50. Not even close. So for goals, I have to give it to Alves. 1v1s, in the attacking sense, I think Cafu was underrated in this as well. Alves was very good at this in attacking sense. Defensively, it's interesting because I think Alves was pretty good. He was pacey, so that helped him when he was defending. But he wasn't necessarily as good a defender as Cafu was for me. So it depends on what you're basing it on, whether it's defensively or attacking for a 1v1. But the overall package, I would give to Cafu, because I think he wasn't dreadful at the attacking side of it and he could beat a man. But defensively, he was a lot better than Alves was. So that overall package, I'd give to Cafu. Defending, again, I would give to Cafu. I just think he didn't really ever get caught out that much compared to Alves. But again, it's the styles of football as well that could play a factor in that. So, but for me, Cafu was the better defender. Composure, I think Alves could be composed on the ball. He was good at it at times, but there were times where he got a bit flustered, or he might get a harsh booking or be a bit rash in a challenge. Whereas I think Cafu was more composed in that sense. He was a bit more reliable. He wouldn't get red carded. I think he had a better temperament and a better mentality in terms of dealing with pressure, in terms of more on the defensive side. And obviously Cafu's won a World Cup. Alves unfortunately never got to do that. Come close a few times, but composure for me, Cafu. Acceleration's an easy one. I think Cafu was underrated with the pace he had, but I think Alves would beat him in a sprint when they were both in their prime. So Alves for that. Dribbling, tough one again. I think I loved Alves and watching him play, but it was more technique with him in terms of first touch, in tight areas with defenders near him. His was more based on pace, whereas I think dribbling-wise, Cafu didn't have as much pace, but he had the technique, and I feel like he was a better dribbler than Alves. So I don't know if that's controversial or not, but I would go with Cafu for dribbling. Tenacity, Cafu was very good at this and keeping a lid on it in terms of using it to his ability of channeling the aggression, whereas I think Alves struggled with that more. I think Alves, he could at times, but there was times, like I said, where he'd be very rash and it could be to the detriment of his team, whereas I think Cafu was better at that, being more composed. Coming back to composure, he's more composed in high pressure situations with tons of pressure. So I would give the tenacity to Cafu because I think he channeled it better. Influence, tough one. I think in terms of leadership and just leading your team in high pressure situations and having that calming effect, I think Cafu takes it. But in terms of assisting your teammates, scoring the odd goal for your team, bombing forward and offering a different option, I think Alves takes it. It depends. And if you're basing it on trophies, it's tough as well because Cafu won a World Cup doing it, but then Alves had it over his club period where he won tons of titles. So I'm going to edge it to Alves, but I could see why you would go with Cafu. Teamwork. It's so... I'm going to have to come back to teamwork. It's very tough because I think Alves offered it in terms of... In an attacking sense, he could offer you more goals. He could offer a free kick, a set piece that could change the game. Whereas Cafu could get an assist, or he didn't score a lot, but he would get assists and he would put a ball into the box. I'm going to give that to Alves, but again, it's tight. Agility, I think Cafu was underrated in this as well. He was agile, more of a dribbler than Alves, but I think Alves was agile to a good standard of dribbling, but he also had a bit more pace. We'll come back to agility. Athleticism, I'm going to give that to... Oh, I don't know. These are tough. Agility, athleticism and passing, I'm stuck at the moment. Technique, obviously with Alves you've got it with the free kicks and corners. Could take a penalty too. Good passer. First touch, tremendous as well. I think Cafu had a very good first touch as well, but he didn't really take free kicks or corners and he didn't score as much. I would give technique to Alves. Awareness, again, overall factor, attacking and defending with your team, knowing where your marker is and even beating your marker on the opposite side when you're attacking. Attack is hard because attacking wise, Alves trumps him every day, but defensively, Alves was more a liability in my opinion, than Cafu. I'm going to give that to Cafu for awareness. Jumping, tough one. I don't think there's a lot in it with this. I think they were both pretty much the same in their jumping ability. I'll edge it to Cafu, but I don't think there's anything to pick for that. Strength, I would give to Cafu. I do think he was a little bit built stronger than Alves was. Alves was a bit more light on his feet and probably easier to muscle off the ball in terms of just sheer strength. So I do think Cafu had that strength factor. Work rate, Alves obviously bombed up and down his whole career, whereas Cafu could at times, but because again of the system and the time and how football was played, probably didn't as much as Alves. But it's not for the lack of ability to do it. I think he had the fitness to do it. It's just the system was different. I'll come back to work rate. Presence, tough again. I think Alves for me growing up he wasn't tall or nothing. He was quite a small footballer, but his ability and the amount he won and playing in that famous Barcelona side, he commanded respect. And I think Cafu commanded it more for Brazil, probably than his club career. But again, that AC Milan team where it's him, Maldini, Nesta, that's not a joke either. And I think people would have been intimidated by Cafu as well. So I'm actually going to edge that to Cafu. But again, very tight. Trophies is another one that weren't that close in the end. Cafu ended with 21 and Alves ended with 42. So just in terms of sheer numbers, you have to give it to Alves. But on the other side of that as well, Alves never won a World Cup and Cafu did. So you have to factor that in. But in terms of just sheer numbers, there's not many people in world football that have won as much as Alves has won. So I have to put respect on it. Career-wise, who had the better career? I think Cafu had a very underrated career, but he simply didn't win as much as Alves did. Now, you can argue a lot of them trophies came with Alves at Barcelona with Messi. But it weren't just Messi. Probably the best club team I've ever seen. The likes of Iniesta, Xavi, Messi, Busquets, Alves. It weren't just Messi that won him all them trophies. It was a collective thing. Cafu obviously won his fair amount of things and he won a World Cup. But, again, I think just in terms of sheer numbers, the amount he's won, when you look back on it, now they're both retired, there's not many players that measure up to Alves. So for me, I do think Alves had the better career. Legacy is, again, very, very tough. I grew up watching that Barcelona team with Alves there for all them years. Loved watching them and him. He's one of my all-time favourites in any position. But Cafu as well, like, he won a World Cup. He got very close to winning two. Got to a final in '98 and obviously they lost to France. But then he lifted it in 2002 against a decent Germany side. And they're both still talked about to this day. Cafu still is mentioned with the greats, and rightly so, because he is. But I still think Alves is as well. So I think it's very tough to separate them. I'm going to have to come back. We're going to finish on legacy because we've got others to come back to. This might be the toughest one I've done out of all the player versus players in terms of going back, because I can't answer certain ones. So that says a lot about this one and how tight it is on some of them. Passing then, I'm actually going to give it to Cafu. I think Alves had more range in his passing ability, but I think he probably made a few more errors as well. So that's my deciding factor for the passing. Agility, I'm going to edge it to Alves, but it's very tight again. Athleticism, I'm going to give it to Alves because I feel like he had a longer career in terms of being in peak shape. Like in terms of the acceleration, that explosiveness, I think he held it a bit longer than Cafu did. So, but it's tough to call. And work rate, simply because he just covered so much ground, I'm going to give it to Alves. And then to finish up then, legacy, I don't want to give an answer for this because I feel like I'm disrespecting whoever don't get it as well. And I think it's so hard to separate them because even though Cafu didn't win as much, I think he's still mentioned in the likes and the names of the original Ronaldo, Maldini, Baresi, players like this that like they have a place cemented in history when they're spoken about. But then Alves and what he won and the amount he won, like, and in modern football where it's getting harder and harder, I'm going to give it to Alves, but I feel bad that someone has to lose out on that. So that's it, guys. I've finished with Cafu on 11 and Alves on 12. One in it. One of the closest ones we've had. I thought it was going to be close, and it definitely was. And you can argue that it could be a draw, but I don't want to give draws on these because it takes away from the idea of going up against each other. Someone has to be a winner, like in football. So Cafu finishes with 11, Alves with 12. Both legends, both players I love and adore and look back on with fond memories. I respect both of them hugely. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. Let me know yours in the comments and how close it was. And I'll be back soon with the Manchester United versus Manchester City FA Cup final preview and my starting 11. So look out for that dropping soon, guys. Have a nice day and I'll catch you soon.